Okay. Could I welcome everyone? Welcome. We're live on YouTube. This is the weekly outreach meeting. It is being recorded and will be displayed on YouTube. And I think I may be having internet trouble, so I should not. Okay. If I disappear, somebody will take over, and I'm not sure if that's happening again. You know what? Somebody else start talking. We're just looking for everybody can introduce themselves and what they're working on or what they brought to the meeting tonight.
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Jen Lampton. I have been for the past week trying to work on newsletter drama, and I am looking forward to hearing all of the other stuff that we're about to announce. Let's see, Luke, do you want to go next?
As I unmute, I'm Luke McCormick, and I try to chip in with like product management, business analyst-y things from time to time. I have a handful of projects that I'm working on that I should come to office hours for, but that's not relevant to this one. That's enough for me, I guess.
Well, I'll go ahead. This is Tim Erickson. I'm in St. Paul. I'm having spotty internet, so I feel like I'm losing you from time to time, but I have been working on a bunch of issues, and I think I'm interested in talking about DrupalCon and what we might be doing around DrupalCon related to Backdrop. Eric?
Mute button gone crazy. Eric, and I am here to ask some questions about New York City Backdrop event, get some feedback from people, and start getting moving on it.
Great. Brian, do you want to say anything?
Sure. I'm Brian Olendike. I work at Penn State. I don't do a ton specifically with Backdrop, although I did just port the Hacks module to Backdrop today. Mostly just wanted to see what you're all up to. I think we have tangentially related communities, so if it's out of scope of this call, I would like to talk about that a bit at a later point in time. But just want to see what you're all up to.
Thanks for coming. Lottie?
Hi, my name's Lottie, and I work with Eric. I'm here to support him in what he's here to talk about, and also just to see what the community's up to as well.
Great. Peter, are you able to introduce yourself, or do you need to be quiet? We know Peter's a regular participant, and it's late at night for him, and sometimes he gets interrupted, so he may not be able to talk right now. So, Jen, do you want to go ahead with the agenda? I think that's everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, so just to give a quick update on last week, or since our last meeting, we had wanted to send a newsletter out, but we're running into some problems with getting access to our mailing list. We seem to accidentally now have 2 MailJet accounts, and it is creating some drama with MailJet to try and get that sorted out. So we're trying to work on that, and I will continue pushing on that today to hopefully we get that unlocked. Blog posts, we have a ton of new draft blog posts up on the website, which is fantastic. I've even seen some draft posts that aren't on the website, so I think we're going to have an excellent backlog of posts to schedule, which is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. There's I've seen a draft of things we can talk about today for event planning, which is really great. Social media, Tim's been doing a great job with tweeting stuff for social media over the last week, so thank you, Tim, for that. And I don't think there have been any other website updates other than content in the last week. So that's what we've done since our last meeting. This week, I mentioned the newsletter. I I think we could probably start working on a draft of the newsletter in a Google Doc so that when we do finally get access to it, we can blast it out as fast as possible. I was thinking that draft will be based on the blog post for the 115 release, but we might want to put a couple of little sections at the bottom announcing some of the stuff that's going on right now. So when we do send it out, we'll look at what's in the blog and see if there's some things we just want to link to get people's attention. So I'm also open to this too. We have a lot of exciting stuff happening in the world of Backdrop, and I'm not really sure what's most important to announce first. We've added some new PMC members. We have a new core committer. Nate's going to be stepping down from the PMC. We adopted a new chat platform. There's a bunch of stuff kind of all going on at once, and I don't know what we should announce first. I was thinking the chat platform might be most important to anybody in the community who, hasn't been watching conversations every day. So that might be the first blog post we want to put up, and then people can go there to talk about all the following things we announce. So if we announce something like Nate stepping down and that causes panic and a whole bunch of people flood to get her and there's nobody there, that could be the worst possible sequence of events. So I was just thinking that might be a good way to do it, but I'm open to feedback if anyone has ideas on that. And then I also would like to get all the information about all of our new leadership changes out as soon as possible. But I also want each one of the people to be able to say what they want in their own words about the thing. So like if you're a core committer, say what you want to say about being a core committer. But I want to give everybody enough space to do that. I would like to be able to like space those blog posts out so you can have a couple weeks to write it, review it, whatever, and it can go up, doesn't have to go immediately, but the news that they're there maybe should go out immediately. So I don't know, I was talking to it with Gregory on chat a couple of days ago, trying to figure out what we should do. And I was thinking maybe one post just saying, these are all the changes that are happening. Keep an eye out on the blog to hear from them later. Might be a good way to sort of make the announcement, get the news out there, but then still leave everybody the time to think about what they want to say and say it themselves later. If everyone thinks that's a good idea, that might be a good plan forward. But yeah, I think that's it. We also have a couple of draft blog posts that are sort of more generic website stuff that I think they could take a backseat to all of the exciting stuff that's actually going on in Backdrop right now. All right, well, that's all I have for newsletter and blog, which is sort of announcements of what's going on. I think we should switch to event planning. We've got a lot of events in the near future and a new event that needs to be planned. So I think we should talk about those next. N10 is the nonprofit technology conference. They're having a big meeting at the end of March in Baltimore. As far as I've heard, there's no plans to cancel the event. They're carefully following CDC guidelines on keeping everybody healthy. They're going to have hand sanitizer stations and encourage anyone who's sick to not attend. So I'm still planning on going. We have our first Backdrop booth there, and we've got a couple of people who volunteered to help sit at it and spread the word, which is great. My plan this week is to order banners. So we have an issue in the backdropcms.org queue where Laren has made us a draft version of what that banner should look like. So I'm going to go ahead and order that as most recently posted. And then also another just cheap like banner with words on it. And I would be open to discussing what those words should be. The banner, the pop-up banner that was advertised or that we have pictures up in the issue doesn't mention Drupal. And so I would like the wordy banner to mention Drupal. And that way when Backdrop and Drupal start to separate, we can still use the pop-up banner and we can throw out the wordy banner. So the cheap one will be sort of disposable just for the next year or so. And then the other one should be usable forever. So I'll create another issue and post about that in Zulip later today. DrupalCon, I don't know if Tim can talk, but last week we had talked about doing some tangential DrupalCon Backdrop events. So maybe Tuesday before and Friday after. Do you want to give us an update on thoughts there, if any?
Sure. I don't have much to add from what I've said already, but there's new people on the call, so I'll quickly summarize what we've talked about, which is getting a venue is the toughest part about doing an event like around DrupalCon. And I had hoped to maybe look around downtown. I just haven't had time, but I do have good access to a co-working facility that's on the light rail about 15 or 20 minutes out of downtown. Pretty easy to get to, and it's, I think, a reasonable venue. I was going to share the link to their website, but it's down today for some reason. But they have during the week, which is when we probably need it, they just have a meeting room with about 20 or 30 people. We could access the upstairs where the co-working is happening. It's right now, it's not very busy there usually. I don't know what it'll be like in a couple of months, but I think it's a suitable venue for a small, like a training or anything from 15 to say 25 people. We could do more if we were on a weekend, but that's probably not going to work. So anyway, so I think we'll have to, we'll need to pay them something. I think it's going to be very affordable and even negotiable. So we should just talk about what we can afford, and I'll negotiate with them. But I don't think that's going to be a stumbling block. So.
Okay.
In terms of, we last talked about just doing like maybe a training was one idea, and we could possibly do more than one day, especially Jen, if there are some of us that are not planning to go to sessions, and if it were a small group of us, and for a small enough group, we could probably just hang around near the convention center, but if we wanted to do something a little bigger. So I don't know if people have other ideas besides just sort of a training. We could also do kind of a summit, an executive planning summit. Any
All the
thoughts?
ideas. All right. New York event.
Okay. We have a tentative venue. Mainly they're waiting for us to give them something to explain what we want to do so they can decide what facilities would be available. And so the question is, what do we want to do? I guess the big questions are, when should this be, so it doesn't interfere with other things that are already being planned, and then how large of an event are we planning for? Is this 10 people getting together and sort of having a training day, hack day kind of thing, or some sort of hack doc thing where some people are doing code work, some people are writing documentation, or is this something where we want to try to bring in other people and have, I don't know, we could get 25 people and do a sort of very small unconference style event, or we could see what's happening, and who knows how many people are interested in Backdrop right now in the New York community. It could be 100 people. So I'm really looking to you all for what sort of an event you think makes sense given the current stage of where everything else is at, the interest that you've seen coming out of other places. So those are the first two questions. When the venue is mostly available during the week, and then what are we looking to do? Anybody have any feedback on that at all?
So this is Jen. I would really like to see it be an event that would attract more people to Backdrop as opposed to a executive planning summit or sprint for people who are already on it. But what that means could still be any number of options. Like it could be more coding, like Tim mentioned, like I think Tim mentioned it. Somebody mentioned like an upgrade your site sprint or something. So like even though it's code related, it would still be take your 777 site and see if you can move it to Backdrop in the course of an hour and a half or something. Or it could be a more high level like introduction with like actual sessions with people talking. Or it could be something with a bunch of like breakout groups where we very unconference style. Nobody comes with anything prepared ahead of time, but we just kind of split into different groups and talk about like, how are we solving the problems we're faced with today? What we found at the Bad Camp Backdrop Summit this year is that we thought we knew who our audience was going to be, and we planned out an agenda for a day. And on the day, the people who were in the room ended up being a really different set of people than people who we thought were going to be in the room. And so we were able to sort of flip it into an unconference style thing and reorganize everything at the last minute. And I think that that might be sort of a safer way to do things at this point, so that we don't spend a lot of time organizing things that end up not being used. But that doesn't mean we couldn't throw in, you know, aspects of any of those pieces, like one prepared session and one sprint hour and a bunch of breakouts or what's needed.
Yeah, I prefer kind of mix of curated and unconference. So there's some structure. We've got a few things that will be of interest and will definitely happen, so people have something to look forward to and to know what they're coming for, and then everything else can just bubble up from what people there want to talk about, teach, learn, and do a kind of mix. If that sounds good, I would prefer that. And with that also, once we put out some information for people to sign up, we get a sense of who's signing up, how many people are signing up, how quickly. Then we can decide how many things we need to really have planned versus what people might bring with them. So that all sounds great. Other opinions on that?
I just want to throw something in real quick. I might be the only one that actually doesn't know what venue you're talking about. What are the?
I haven't mentioned the venue because I don't want to do so on a live stream until they've actually agreed to let us use the space. It's a tentative agreement right now. It's an academic institution.
So somewhere in New York City.
It's in Manhattan. Okay. It's close to subways. It's an academic institution that has a nice new facility.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say I jumped on mostly for if you were going to talk about this. So we started our own events with hacks called Hacks Camps, and we're sticking purely to an unconference format. Mm-hmm. And I threw up a link in the chat, but what we tried to do to hedge that bet of like, you have people that don't know what an unconference is and are kind of skeptical of it. Particularly if you have an academic institution. I found that we had ours at Duke. So we had a bit of that, like, well, if I send my people and it's during the week, what am I getting? Mm-hmm. So we had 2 keynotes, which is basically just like a talk over lunch, so that people knew there was like an anchor type of a thing to the scheduling. We did form the schedule completely organically as a group, but then we had people come that were more or less organizing and kind of came up with like, well, here's like the 10 things that I think we're going to talk about. And the link I sent, we actually populated the list ahead of time of like, here's the types of conversations to expect here, just to give people a sense. And then we let it be, you know, the day dictated what it was, like Jen was saying with that meetup. But we found that worked really well. We ended up having like 45 people or so. So I've been told you can do unconferences successfully up to like 150 to 200. I haven't participated in one that big. The biggest I've been in is like 80 to 90. But yeah, I think it's a great structure. It's reminds me a lot of BOFs. I love going to them. I learn way more at them. So highly recommend.
Cool. Anyone else?
I guess one of the things I just want to throw in there is that Eric and I both have been to unconferences that are extremely large, because we attend one on on a yearly annual basis out in Oakland.
Yeah, and I guess a little background, just so you all know where I'm coming from with it. I should have led with this. I've got experience organizing Drupal camps on conferences and things like that. I was one of the primary organizers of 10 New York City Drupal camps and a whole bunch of other things, and really like the process and how it works, and how it manages to bring communities together. And I think a whole bunch of us have had various experience on that level. So I think organizing something like that, we all have the foundation to know what we're talking about, and it would be really simple. From my end, as person who's offering to, spearhead the whole thing and deal with logistics and make sure it happens and organize, I think I'm not worried about being able to pull this off, and I'm really excited everybody is equally into the unconference concept. So that brings up when.
Your before the end of the school year idea.
Right.
Probably avoiding March and April are good because everybody's going to be gearing up for and recovering from DrupalCon. But I don't know when the school year ends, but May, June is also a beautiful time to be in New York. Improves incentive for people want to travel there.
Well, let me ask a question. Hold on 1 second. When does the semester end? Mid-May? Okay, cool. Did you all hear that?
No.
Oh, mid-May is the end of the semester.
Okay.
So we would like to do it before that, so that there are students around. Tim, one of the things that I was thinking is that because if we do it during the school year and we do get a bunch of students, it might be a really exciting environment to do some UX focus group stuff. Might be really good candidates for smart people who know how to work their way around some system. And so, yeah, I was thinking, maybe a whole part of the day could be just corralling people into a testing room. So there's all sorts of things that we can do. But so before the middle of May, what are people thinking? End of April or first? I'd say, I don't know. I think the last couple weeks of April might
Do
be
you know what the
doable.
DrupalCon dates are?
No.
When DrupalCon is?
Yeah.
May 18th to 22nd.
Yeah.
So
I think probably last week in April is probably the latest you can get without cannibalizing DrupalCon travel plans.
right. So maybe okay. So it has to be mid-April-ish at the latest in order to not sabotage ourselves because of DrupalCon. Okay.
New York's very nice in April too.
Yeah, it is. So let me get in touch with the venue and solidify a date. I would hope we could get a Friday, so people could come for a long weekend, and then we could maybe do something else, more like a hack doc kind of thing if people want over the weekend. So does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Just want to throw out there that we should be aware, if we're going to do it on a weekend, on Friday, rather, we should be aware of Hanukkah and Easter, because those are somewhere around there. Because I know the kids' spring break is.
Yeah, Passover and Easter right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. I will look at a calendar and I will come back and I guess chat and zulip with people about it. And the last thing I really want to know is who is interested in giving some time to help make this happen, and what might you want to do?
Sure. So I'm willing, I'm always interested in helping plan things, events. I love unconferences. You're eager or supporter there. This is a tight timeline. I just want to
Oh, yeah.
acknowledge, but I'm willing to help, and I think willing to try and make it a go. And I'd love to try and get out there for it. I don't know if I can, but I would make a serious effort to. So.
And there should be good equipment for bringing in remote folks. I would hope at the location. Cool. Anyone else interested in helping at this point, or y'all have way too much on your list to do, and I'll just come back and give you updates as things are happening?
This is Jen. I would love to be there. I don't know how much capacity I'm going to have to help beforehand, but anything that you need on site, I'm happy to contribute to.
Cool.
I graduated from an educational institution in New York City, so I know lots of people there and would be interested in possibly being involved. Oh, near a weekend, actually, like a long weekend works for me too.
Great.
So I'm not sure we answered the how large question, or we're just going to open a sign-up form somewhere and see how many people are interested.
I think that's the best solution.
Okay.
I would expect, given the short timeline, given the DrupalCon issues, given this is the first one of these things we're pulling off, it's going to be on the small side. I would expect 10 to 25 people. But if we get 50, if we get 100, that I'd want to cap it at something like that. But we can dream.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the feedback.
Right.
I'll keep y'all informed.
So Tim, last week you mentioned meetups in Twin Cities. I'm not sure if there's anything else to say this week.
No, a week from yesterday, next Tuesday, we're doing a Twin Cities meetup. Only a couple people signed up so far, but I hope to do it regularly and it'll hopefully grow.
Great. Exciting. Okay, so social media wise this week, I think we're going to have a blog post going up and we'll be able to pull from that. I don't know if there's anything else time sensitive we should tweet about. Tim, maybe we should brainstorm about how official we want to make the DrupalCon thing, and if we want to start promoting it so that people are coming to DrupalCon might be able to have it on their radars, something to do on Friday or Tuesday or whenever we decide to do it. But that might also be something we can start promoting via Twitter. We figure out what to say.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that briefly now, or? Sure. I'm a little reluctant to do it on Friday because my favorite part of DrupalCon is probably Sprint Day, and it's the free day. So I could actually participate in Sprint Day. So I prefer Tuesday. I think we should do something and announce it because, yeah, I'd like for people to be able to plan on that. I don't know if I get lost again. This is very frustrated with my internet today. So yeah, I would say, yeah, we need to decide exactly what the format is and make an announcement as quickly as we can.
Start by saying like, hey, if you're going to be at DrupalCon and interested in Backdrop, save the date, Tuesday, whatever, there's going to be an event nearby, and just leave it at that. And then as long as we're telling people like there's going to be a thing, then later on when we figure out what the thing is, we can be like, the thing is gonna look like this. And then, oh, now we know this about it, and like, here's the whatever. So I think I'm totally fine with saying Tuesday, and let's just do a save the date thing and figure it out later. If that's okay with you.
Sure, and it might not hurt to, to float the idea that we're going to do something on Tuesday. We're feeling out who's interested and how many people there are, and see what kind of response we get.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it. We have just wanted to make sure Nate didn't have anything you wanted to say. He left. Let's see. So as far as the agenda goes, I think that's everything that we wanted to talk about for this week. So Gregory, I noticed you joined late. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or if you have anything particular you want to talk about this week.
Yeah, hi, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Melbourne. Sorry, I just jumped in. I'm looking after my friend's kids this weekend. So I'm going through the agenda. I see that you've already discussed the PMC announcements, and now you're at DrupalCon, right? Discussing what, yeah, I'm not attending, so I have nothing to contribute. I'll just watch until something relevant comes up.
There was one thing I asked about earlier about the how we want to notify people. This is something you might have an opinion on too, about all of the new PMC stuff. Like, we have so much stuff going on, and I want to be able to like spread out the announcements, so it's not like there's 18 things that happened in early March and then nothing until like June 1st. I don't know what it's gonna be. But I still think that's important to get the news out quickly about all the stuff that's going on. So I was thinking what we might want to do is like one blog post that's like, hey, everybody, we have new leadership. These are the people on the PMC. This is our new core committer. Keep an eye out for more from them later. And that would buy us time for them to be able to like think about what they want to say and say it the way they want to say it without having to rush out information in a hurry. And then we could start like tweeting and stuff about those people too right away, and we could link to the blog post. So that might be a good way to handle that. Like, we need to get information out, but not also wanting to rush people in doing that. If you think that sounds good.
Yeah. Do we have a newsletter as well coming up?
We should. I
So
mentioned that earlier.
so I think
I'm trying to get access to our MailJet account so that we can send that.
I think that if the newsletter was in a form of a digest, it could be linking to all these 3 posts once they're out.
Yeah.
And if any of the PMC members by then has also posted blog posts, we can link them actually from, like, we can edit even the post that we make the announcement, and then just for each individual one.
Yeah.
So like,
that's a great idea.
yeah. So we don't
Okay.
have to rush the what you call it, the newsletter. The newsletter can come out either after or at the same time as point 3, like the Nate's blog post, then new PMC members, and I'm not sure if that should we announce Nate stepping down first and then the new PMC members, or
Maybe we should do the new ones first, just so that it doesn't look like we're losing people.
yeah, that's what I thought.
People.
Do we want to chat with Brian a little bit about his thoughts on hacks during the meeting, or should we hang around after and chat with him, or how do we want to do that?
We've got some time. Why don't we do it now?
You want to do what now, Eric?
Brian, what did you have in mind in terms of you wanted to chat with a little bit about where Backdrop was overlapping what you're doing?
Oh, it was mostly around events potentially. So we're trying to grow Hacks. So if you don't know what Hacks is, it's an editor. We're basically trying to be the open source non-corporate alternative to Gutenberg that plugs into anything. So there's a Backdrop plugin, there's a Drupal 7, 8 plugin, whatever. But it funnels a lot more functionality than like a CK editor does into the browser, but it's basically CK editor type of capability. So saves all it makes your body blobs a lot nicer. anyway, I feel like, so I hang around the Classic Press community as well, if any of you are aware of Classic Press. So it's a fork of WordPress. And I feel like there might be some benefit long-term to communities of our scale. And you guys, your community is bigger than mine, so I'm not trying to lump myself in there, but that aren't the Drupal level and WordPress level scale of actually kind of going in on like events and kind of co-marketing, if you will. So there's actually there's another Hacks Camp this year planned at Apereo, which is a larger organization, and it's in Michigan. But just the idea with like Apereo that I think maybe groups like us could really leverage is like Apereo is a just collection of open source communities. And so when Apereo holds an event, it's not dedicated to Sakai or uPortal as two examples of projects in that, and Elms is a project in that as well. It's just like, hey, we're having a meeting, and then anyone from those communities is encouraged to submit. So Hacks Camp is going to be taking place during their event as part of the schedule, so that it's like an enhancement proposition. And I just wanted to kind of put that out to this group as well, because I've been trying to doing that with the Classic Press people too, that we have a lot of stuff in common that we could be sharing, you know, as far as community ideals, that we could be sharing, just saying like, hey, here's a spot on the calendar that we can all go and hang out. And then, yeah, we do still largely have a lot of the same conversations, but I think we could get a lot more cross-pollination that way. Because I know the Classic Press people are kind of in a similar place as you all are, as far as like forking from a larger ecosystem for not purely code reasons. So I just wanted to put that out there. I hang out in their Slack channel a lot and try to push them towards certain community events and things.
Yeah, I've been following the Classic Press sort of like news since it sort of like was announced, and there's a lot of similarities. It's the same cost in money and time for agencies or site owners, which is driven them to sort of like fork. And be upset, and the same objections with how the leadership, the decisions are being made. So there might be a lot of things that we can sort of like discuss and exchange ideas on how going about doing things, approaching the mother community. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I've been we did a little open source CMS unconference about a year ago in the Twin Cities. I'm interested in that concept of not just meeting as a single project, but with other small projects. So I would be very interested in collaborating on something. I also, Brian, I think it might be, we've been doing a virtual user group, and I've seen that you've worked on the module for Backdrop, but to be honest, I still have no idea what you're doing. And it might be fun to have you demo it for us sometime.
Yeah, I can do that.
Or somebody. And so we could schedule just a virtual kind of user group where you could do a demo. That would be fun.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
Is that, sorry for context, is that a Gutenberg module? Was it? Because you
we're kind of the anti-Gutenberg. So my fundamental objection to not contributing to Gutenberg is that I think it'll lock people into a Gutenberg paradigm for the rest of their site's existence. So, I mean, a lot of I have a little logo back there. So my primary platform work is on a project called Elms Learning Network, which is built on top of Drupal 7. So we're kind of hanging out there, which is also why I've paid attention to what's going on with Backdrop and contributed things here and there occasionally, riding the fence on that one. But Gutenberg's main output, well, one, you have to write plugins for Gutenberg in React, and then the output saves in this interesting like HTML comments, JSON blob format that then gets presented and saved as kind of a derivative HTML. But it's basically, we're trying to do very similar things. We started working on these efforts at similar times, but ours is built on top of a technology called web components, which can plug into any platform. So Backdrop is usually one of the ones that I demo as far as like, hey, look at this thing working across a lot of different contexts. And you kind of have to look at it. I'd be happy to do a demo sometime on, a different call, Tim. I don't want to hijack what you're all talking about.
No, not today, but another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that my question was more which module, because you mentioned the module, but I saw that you're referring to the hacks module. Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. I've seen a couple of demos online of it. Yeah.
Talk about audience sharing. I also would like to say I think that's a great idea. I also was really surprised when we first announced Backdrop. We got all of these agencies that showed up as supporters that did both Drupal and WordPress. And those are not the kinds of agencies that we usually see at Drupal events. And I think that having more of this like open source CMS style event that Tim was talking about, or even something that might be like a classic Backdrop event, might be really valuable. You might be able to draw in those agencies that don't feel like a Drupal event is a place for them, but something that has more of the variety of software that they use on a daily basis could be really, really compelling for them. And I think like, you know, the more we can share audiences with groups that are in our demographic too, like nonprofit groups or higher education groups, or I don't know, just the kinds of people that we see using the software, where it's a little bit more platform agnostic and we have content that is universal, I think would also be really good. So I'm all into hearing about how we can make that happen. We talked about this a lot in like camp planning days too. And part of the problem is that we don't know people in any of those groups, and how to reach them. Like, how do you reach someone who doesn't know you exist and you don't know they exist? And so I would also be really interested in talking more about how to solve those problems.
I think the common alignment with universities, I mean, at whatever Manhattan-based university is going to host your event, that can become a really good incubator for these things emerging. And I honestly don't know if it's like that big a difference in the way that you position like marketing an event, but yeah, like a classic press classic press / backdrop type of a thing could be compelling from that. Like it also, there's a certain number of people that are kind of getting sick of the tribalism of certain communities of just like, hey, I come here and I'm only going to hear from people in Drupal or WordPress or fill in the blank. And so we actually positioned Hacks Camp as like it has the word hacks in it, but we didn't talk about hacks very much. It was mostly around web standards and web components. And we talked, a couple people afterwards commented on like, wouldn't it be cool if there was an event that was basically just like web standards focused and repurposing? And I think aligning with universities as the space, because we have lots of space that's usually unused in summers. Like our event at Apereo it's free. I don't have to pay anything for it. It's just, you know, kind of globbing onto what they have going on. So, and similar, I mean, I would encourage you, if it's at DrupalCon, being able to carve out some BOF of tracks during the event that you could also, you know, attract people to. But I really think hitting the higher education market from an engagement perspective, not a like go and make money off of necessarily perspective, would be big. Just because I know there was a talk at Drupal Camp New Jersey, which is held at Princeton, that was basically like, hey, nonprofits and all of us small shops, like what the heck are we going to do? And the fact that that conversation is still going on and still getting accepted at a regular basis tells me that there's an audience there that's craving to hear that message of like, hey, well, let's check in on Backdrop and let's check in on, you know, everything else going on, because we don't know what to do.
That's great.
Yeah, that was my session at the New Jersey Drupal Camp.
Oh, snap. Okay.
And Lottie as well, who's I think still hanging out on the channel. She did the bulk of it.
I need to watch that.
But yeah, I like the idea of that sort of crossing of communities and stuff. And if we can pull off this first small, simple event and, you know, maybe build a relationship with the venue to be able to, you know, have them trust us and be able to do a larger thing like that, that would be great. We used to have a relationship with Brooklyn Polytech, where all the early Drupal camps happened, and it became like the place for open source on conferences to happen for a while, and they were all free, and we had some people in the department who were always getting these things in for us, and it really became what you're talking about, a great little hub of activity. And then they decided they got bought by NYU, and then they decided they had to charge real fees for the use of the space, and all that kind of dissipated. But it'd be nice to see something like that rejuvenated with Backdrop and Hacks and all these folks who are getting back to the ethical and political foundation of why we're all doing this, as well as the code foundations.
Nice, thanks.
Is there anything else we want to talk about in our remaining 6 minutes, or should we wrap this up and get ready for the weekly dev meeting?
I think we should wrap up. Thanks to,
Before,
go ahead.
before we go, just if Eric or Brian, any of you can also post a link to that session that you were talking, if it was recorded, that'd be great.
And thank you all for coming and sharing what you're working on.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. We'll see you guys in a couple minutes.